Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to I'm for Fun podcast. Glad to have you here today. Again, we have a great representation from around the world and every continent, and we're very pleased with that. And we got a lot to share with you today. I'll jump right in on the hot topics. First of all, U.S. inflation has accelerated in June at its fastest pace in 13 years. And it's being fueled by auto sales, airline fares, and other durable goods items that have been sold. It's really been interesting to see how this has moved and what kind of impact it'll have on us. Next thing is the COVID Delta variant. This variant, which has been reported to be more transmittable than any other variant we've seen, now makes up virtually all the cases in the UK and more than half of the new infections in the USA, about 56%. The variant really is ripping around the world at a scorching pace, and those who haven't been vaccinated are at a greater risk, the WHO has indicated. And they may be the biggest threat to the partially vaccinated populations worldwide, unvaccinated. So health organizations in the world are watching this variant and hoping that it does not fuel another epidemic by the fall. Four trends driving consumer prices higher are bounce back. Traveling related prices are returning to the pre-pandemic levels as vaccination rates do rise and people are booking summer trips, and business travel is picking up slowly. Pandemic boost is the second one. The cost of used vehicles surging during the pandemic. Car manufacturers who closed factories have boosted the used car market. There's a global shortage of consumer chips that have made matters worse for the new product, and buyers shifted over to that used car market. So that has driven prices higher. And higher prices, are they here to stay is the question. Restaurant employers, theme parks have boosted wages to the employees, the cooks, the servers, the operators that have translated into higher prices at some places to the customers. So the other aspect is lower and slower. Rent increases slowed early in the pandemic as people stayed put or decided that they'd rather own a home than pay rent. So that has had an impact on consumer prices as well. So it'll be interesting to see how long that hangs in there. In the travel and tourism area, United Airlines CEO Scott Kirby said this week that travel will not recover fully until 2023, and that's based on a lag in the business demand, and we're certainly all seeing that. He said that while the pent-up leisure demand has exceeded 100% from 2019, business demand is still off by 60% as some borders around the world remain closed. Kirby went on to say that he feels next summer will be the biggest year in travel history for Europe, and that Asia is probably another 18 to 24 months behind that pattern. Overall, the airlines are seeing a huge desire for people to get back and reconnect. So travel, though not yet back to 100%, is certainly hopefully heading in the right direction. Leisure certainly up. Another interesting aspect is air rage. We're seeing an amazing amount of air rage around the world. The FAA usually sees about 140 cases of air rage a year. And last week, they saw 150 cases of air rage, people fighting on airplanes. One woman was actually duct taped to her seat and held until they landed. They are assigning penalties to this now of $50,000 fines and up to 20 years in prison, depending on the infraction. A mid-season park update. In general, most parks and facilities worldwide are in full operation again. While many have had to adjust their operating days and hours due to restrictions or employee shortages, most have now moved to full operations with more typical hours. There's still a few exceptions. I think we saw Dorney Park in Pennsylvania is closed 2 days. Holiday World over in Indiana closes at 8 p.m. Disney's Animal Kingdom closes at 7. Hershey Park closes at 8 p.m. and Canopy Lake up in New Hampshire just reported that they are only open 5 days a week, Wednesdays through Sunday. On a positive front, Legoland Goshen, New York opened on 7/9 just a couple of days ago, Friday, and we're happy for them. They held that park in abeyance for a year to get it ready for this season at a reported cost of about $400+ million. It's the first park that has opened in the Northeast United States in 40 years. Another sign that we have to watch carefully is Disney has just yesterday announced another discount ticket program. Disney announced its new 4-day summer fun ticket. This is a special for Florida residents where through September 15th, Florida residents can visit Walt Disney World parks for a daily rate of $54 if they buy a 4-day ticket. This is on the heels of Disney doing basically the same thing in California a week ago. Everybody's looking forward to the 2021 holiday season, both Halloween and Christmas. And it's going to be a very important part of this 2021 season, as we all know. Parks are gearing up for the resumption of their holiday events after COVID virtually eliminated everything in 2021. So Halloween, Christmas, big parts of this coming season. We're seeing a lot of park operators already beginning their advertising for those. So holiday events are going to be extremely important this year, as they typically are. One other thing on a sad note, we lost one of our industry veterans and all-around good guys this week, Paul Reuben. Paul was with Park World magazine. He was their North American editor for years. He died at the age of 84, and we'll miss his cherubic smile and his great sense of humor. Paul was really a fun guy. It was always fun to meet up with him at IAPA and hear what was going on. And the good news is he was still riding roller coasters up till the very end at 84. So we'll miss Paul. That takes us to our guest today. I want to introduce John Reilly. John is Chief Operating Officer of Palace Entertainment. It's one of the leading leisure park operators in the United States and an arm of Parques Reunidos out of Spain. Parques has the largest individual portfolio of water parks in the world and is the second largest operator in Europe. Palace Entertainment operates in all sectors of our industry. They're in the theme parks, the family entertainment centers, animal parks, indoor, outdoor, and a lot of these parks have wonderful historical backgrounds, which I'm sure John will touch on a little bit today. John oversees the company's portfolio of 25 parks here in the USA, and he's been in that position since late 2019. So John got the deal directly with COVID in his new job. So aren't you lucky, John? John was, I've known John a long time, and he's really one of the great talents in our industry. He previously served as COO and interim CEO of the SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment. And quite frankly, a lot of people, and I certainly do, credit John with being the person who brought SeaWorld back on the tracks after quite a few years of having issues. He brought them back to the basics. So more than 3 decades of experience in the leisure industry, and he began, I believe, down at Busch Gardens in Williamsburg, Virginia. John, welcome to I'm4FUN. Glad to have you here. You look like you're sitting out on your deck at Lake Compounce. Is that where you are?
Yeah, the background here is Bristol, Connecticut, Lake Compounce, which, as you know, celebrated its 175th anniversary this year.
Yeah.
So that's my background, but to be candid, I'm in Pittsburgh.
I'd rather be in Lake Compounce.
Well, I'm actually at Kennywood, so that's pretty good too.
Oh no, if you're at Kennywood, you're in great shape. Well, John, welcome to the show. Been trying
Thanks,
to get
Dave.
you on here for a couple of months, as you know, and I know you've been very busy in your role coming on with Palace and then coming out of COVID. And managing and operating that large team. How many employees does Palace have in the United States now, John?
Right now we're over 7,000.
7,000. Wow. So,
Yeah.
and that would that be that's full and seasonal, I would assume.
Yes, full-time and seasonal.
Yeah.
Majority of the parks, as you know, are seasonal, and so the majority of our team is seasonal, but we're over 7,000 year to date, and we continue to hire.
Well, you know, for years in the industry, you always heard Disney, Universal, SeaWorld, Six Flags, Cedar Fair, Palace and Parques Reunidos, kind of like Merlin also. They always flew a little under the radar, weren't exactly understood by the industry. Give us a little background on the relationship with Palace and Parques and how that works and functions and
Sure.
how the operation moves forward.
Will do. Well, first, thanks for the kind introduction, Dennis. And like you said, I've enjoyed my industry relationship with you, friendship with you over the years. And I do remember you said many years ago we met, just a ways from your home park at King's Dominion. You come down 95 and east on 64, and we met in Williamsburg. Years after we were there. So it's it's a small world, and I think it's one of the great things about the industry. So in terms of Palace, it's just a great time to be here. You mentioned we're part of the leading global leisure operator, Parques Reunidos, with over 60 parks, predominantly in Europe and the US. And we also operate a water park in Australia. And it's just an exciting time to be here. And it's an exciting time to be part of that. And I think when you look at regional operators in the US and global operators, one of the really exciting things for me about this portfolio, Dennis, is just the iconic nature of the portfolio. And I think Parques Reunidos and Palace, have really built an iconic portfolio. And when you look at, I think there's 3 segments that make this such a great opportunity here in the US. We've got historic amusement, which you talked about. So many people talk about theme parks, and that's a great umbrella, I think, in the industry. But we've got a park, in Lake Compounce, 1846, the longest continuously operating park in the US. Idlewild, down the road here in Westmoreland County, just close to Pittsburgh. And then Kennywood, 1899. And I think the really amazing thing about these parks is how beloved they are at home, but their enduring appeal, and that they really embrace amusement. I mean, they just embrace the good sort of old-fashioned outdoor fun of sort of rides in the experience. So I think, that this Palace portfolio, that's one of the exciting things. I think the second thing is the really core competency and unique nature of the children's parks we operate. Idlewild, Dutch Wonderland, award-winning children's parks. If you haven't been to Storyland, it's a drive to get up there, but it's absolutely a stunning property up in the White Mountains in New Hampshire, and then Castle Park, out on the West Coast. So, we've got a great kind of cluster of historic amusement, children's parks, and then, as you mentioned, Parques Reunidos but Palace here in the U.S. and in Australia. In the U.S. and Australia, we operate 9 water parks, and it's another, I think, very specialized core competency that we have. We've got Raging Waters, California's largest water park, Noah's Ark, the largest in the U.S., and Wisconsin Dells. Connecticut's largest, in the background here. So, I think the portfolio is really great, and we've got, we have an organization ready to support its growth. So it's a great time to be here, and I'm really excited to be here.
Does the future plans, John, are you looking for expansion? Are you looking for growth in those sectors? I mean, the great thing I always felt about the Palace and Parques portfolio is what you're saying, the broad reach. So you've got counterbalances, indoor, outdoor weather situations where it can't all be bad in one season, I wouldn't think, knock on wood. But how would you address it? I mean, how do you look at that when you came into the job, looking at that broad array of entertainment? How do you feel about that?
Well, I think there's opportunity for growth in the U.S. And you look at those kind of 3 core components we have. we're interested in growing in whatever way makes the most sense for the business. So, certainly we have an appetite to grow. We don't have anything further, on that point to offer today, but certainly the company is growth oriented.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think, as we all know, acquisitions, M&A are very important. We see everybody in the industry talking and looking at it. We have for years, and we know how expensive it is to open a new facility, as I just mentioned in the hot topics, with Lego being the first park in 40 years to open in the Northeast in US at over 400 million. It's not if you're going to sit at the table and play in this game, it takes a pretty good ante to do it. So
Yeah, this is a great business to be in. And, where we are largely, we have dedicated followings in our home markets. In a lot of cases, as you say, there are high barriers to entry in this business. So, in many cases, we don't have somebody down the street, in the same business that we're in. So it's a great business to be in, and the collection of assets we have, I think, sets us up well for value creation in the future.
John, as we typically do, we get questions rolling in during the thing, and we got one that just came in. It says from Carol. It says, how do your facilities handle any competition you have in your various markets, and how are you positioned to gain that market share? You got a lot of different elements you're dealing with.
Yeah, I think you always look at what competitors are doing, because you can learn. But I think you have to balance that with a focus internally on how you can be better. And so some of the things that we've been doing, we're creating new reasons to visit. We've had local chefs in Pittsburgh and in the Hartford area in Connecticut create new food and beverage events at Lake Compounce and Kennywood Bites and Pints. We've got micro events going on. We have the 175th celebration at Lake Compounce. We have Venus Vortex. So the more we do celebrations for World Oceans Day and other events, the more fun events and reasons to visit that we can create for people help us be better. And I'm a bit of a sports fan, Dennis. And although competition is important, you have to look and see what other people are doing. If you look at John Wooden at UCLA, he didn't scout his opposition. It was always about how those players became the best players they could be, constantly innovating, constantly getting better internally. So I think that is as an important, or maybe even a more important part of the equation. Just make yourself better. And these events that we're adding, new attractions that we're putting in, the way that our great teams out in the parks are operating, I think put us in a strong competitive position.
Yeah, I've said to other guests on the show, there was a lot of horrible things that came out of COVID, but there were a lot of good things that came out of COVID too. And we saw out at Knott's Berry Farm where they added special events outside the park. Six Flags did the same. Cedar Fair did. Disney, Universal. John, you came in. When did you actually arrive on the scene in 19?
December of 19.
That's what I thought. So you came in. Whoa, and then whoa, I'm sure was the reaction. What'd you think? I mean, when you took the reins and you got hit with this COVID aspect, how did it affect the things that were in motion? And from a management standpoint, I think people would be interested in hearing what audibles you had to call with manufacturers and
Sure.
employees, et cetera.
Yeah, I'll give you a view first, Dennis, overall, like how we approached it, and then maybe a bit of an internal view within the organization, and then a bit of an external view, for the industry. So first, just overall, you have to be agile. This is a dynamic environment, and especially if you look back in 2020, nobody knew what was going to happen next. So you had to be, constantly iterating, constantly evolving your plan, and be flexible. And so I think that really is the key. Even now, you have to be ready for everything. The internal view, the second point that I made, Dennis, is I've been so inspired by our employees. And like our guests, but our employees have had personal hardships. There are people out there who have lost family members to COVID, who've gone through trying times,
Yeah.
personally or financially. They've made sacrifices, but they inspire me every day. And I've just been so inspired how anxious everybody was to get back to work and how excited everybody was, particularly the parks that couldn't open in 2020, how excited they were to open their doors in 2020 and see their guests coming in. So, I think one of the things you learn is just how resilient you are and how lucky you are to have great people out in the field working.
How'd
And
you
in
stay in touch
terms
with them, John? How'd you, I know you couldn't fly a lot during 2020. Was it all Zooming and Teaming and everything like that?
we burned a lot of hours on Microsoft Teams, and as we said, the sort of agile and dynamic approach. We actually had a standing call every day as we took in more information, evaluated new safety protocols and other measures. So we
Yeah.
had a team call every day with every park support person, every GM for a long time. And I think one thing about a crisis, it's a challenging time. People make sacrifices, people go through hardships, but it's actually often the easiest time to lead because people are very clearly bound together by a common cause.
Yeah.
So, I think we saw that, and I couldn't be more proud or grateful of the team. If you look at the external view of what we learned, for me, just how enduring the appeal of this industry is, and what really kind of flipped a switch for me is I went up to Storyland in New Hampshire last summer, where a lot of states were having challenges with the pandemic. We had capacity limitations, and all up and down the roads in the mountains, you could see people just wanting to be outside, wanting to be together again in a safe way. And,
Yeah.
we saw that at Storyland as well. So I mean, the industry is enduring, appealing, and largely the outdoor nature of the experience and the fun. I think is something that cuts through, and we're seeing it now with demand for people wanting to come back. The last point I'd make, kind of that other view, is you said, how did it go joining in December and
Yeah.
into 2020? Palace was already in a mode of reinvention, sort of when COVID started. So we were in the middle of moving our U.S. office, Park Support Center, from Newport Beach, California to Pittsburgh, largely building a new team here on the East Coast. So, certainly we had to be a little more thoughtful about our pace. Candidly, it caused some changes in the pace.
Sure.
Certainly we had to be mobile like a lot of other companies, but I think in many ways it probably made us stronger. So we're sort of happy to resume that reinvention plan now.
John, one of the things I saw you talk about recently, I mentioned again in Hot Topics, we're seeing air rage. We've seen some issues in parks. You've had some, Disney's had them, Universal, Kings Island, Six Flags, everybody's had that, I don't know what's causing it, but pin up rage. And I know you took the bull by the horns very early, and you got a hold of it. Maybe you'd like to talk a little bit about that and tell us what you did.
Sure. So at Kennywood, before the season started, we have a general manager here, Mark Pauls, who's just a great industry operator, and he implemented a new chaperone policy. I think that a lot of others in the industry have followed.
Yeah.
And basically the policy is this: if you're 17 or under, after 4 o'clock, you must be accompanied by a 21-year-old or older supervising adult.
And how do you police that?
And we absolutely do. And we expect anyone who is under that age to have a supervising adult after a certain hour. So if we need to intervene and there's not somebody of an adult age who's going to ensure the right kind of behavior in an amusement park or a water park, we'll ask the guest to leave. And so I think that's been tremendously effective. A lot of people have followed. One of the keys is always close cooperation with law enforcement. You have to be vigilant all the time, but we feel good about the environment we've created we're going to continue to work hard to make sure we do that. And I'll always be a cheerleader for the industry. I think this is one of those cases where the industry can actually potentially provide added assurance to people, or added comfort, maybe is a better word, to people, because we're in a secure perimeter. We have bag checks, or we have metal detectors. We have law enforcement on site. We have codes of conduct. And if you think about all the other places you can go in your leisure time, there are a lot of places that don't have that. So I think this is a case where we're stepping up. I think the industry can step up, and we can actually be a comfort, a place where people feel really good about going, and that maybe they'll be not have to witness things like that.
I always said when I was really active in IAPA and was working on the media crisis plan for the industry, that we watched, of course, the CPSC very carefully. And quite frankly, at the end of the day, a theme park, amusement park, water park, they were one of the safest places to be on the planet. I always laughed, and I've said several times, billiards, bowling, sleeping, going to the refrigerator, grilling, all of these had a higher profile and with accidents and security than being in a theme park, because of how we do inspect and secure our parks. So what you're saying absolutely holds true, and probably even more prominent today.
Yeah, it's as you know, being an industry veteran, safety is the first thought we have in everything that we do, and it has to be. And I've always been pleased the way that the industry works together on these issues, and I think that's critical going forward.
A couple of more questions coming in, John. This one's from Bernie. You may know him. He says, Parques is the mothership, but how involved are they in the day-to-day operations of the parks here in the United States? Be careful how you answer this.
Oh, it's a great question. It's a great question, Bernie. And I think the way we view this is the company brings a lot of resources to the table. It's a leading operator with more than 60 parks around the world, and we have to be able to learn from best practices, whether they're in San Dimas or they're in Spain. And I think that's a great approach to the business. So I see it as a competitive advantage that we're part of a great global operator. They bring resources to the table, and we're excited to be part of that portfolio.
Another question, John, this is from Jerry. It says, did Palace have capital expenditures planned for 2020 when you got there that had to be postponed or canceled? And have those been resumed? And how did you work with the manufacturers and suppliers in any area, not only rides and attractions, but maybe in merch and food and beverage also?
Yeah. So I think, like others in the business, we had to, if you look back at 2020, we had to make the right decisions for the business to make sure that the business is healthy coming out of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And did that involve looking at CapEx, looking at really any cash expenditure? Yes, as you'd imagine with any company. But I think you have to remember, as I mentioned, we were in the midst of a reinvention of a program before, and reevaluating the capital approach with a much more consumer-based approach, much more data-based approach. So there were changes coming in our plan. Did we iterate in 2020 going forward? Yes. Are we anxious to resume? Absolutely. Do I have news on the specific projects today? I don't. We were happy with the response from manufacturers who are willing to hold or wait. And I think in a lot of cases those are longstanding relationships. We want the manufacturers to be healthy. They want us to be healthy. So in a crisis, you see a lot of people working together, and that's what we saw.
Yeah, I think it's brought the manufacturing and supply side and the operating side together in a way that I've never seen in my 50 plus years. I mean, we've always worked together, but this was a case of lose-lose or win-win if we didn't do it the right way. Sure. I think everybody stepped up with that.
Agreed.
Here's another one that says, Uh, what's your outlook on the industry in terms of rebound? How long do you think it's going to take to get back to pre-19 numbers?
Yeah, so as you'll imagine, I can't share specific numbers,
Sure.
but so thus far in 2021, we've seen strong demand, and I think we've got good products out there. We've got new ways to communicate to our past customers, existing customers, and in a lot of cases, new reasons to visit. So we've been pleased with the demand thus far. And I think that the pace has been very good, maybe better than we thought. We've been able to. I'll give you an indication. Our plan going into the season had 400 fewer operating days, over 400 fewer operating days than we have right now. And
So that was spread across all of your properties, right?
across the portfolio, we've been able to add those back in just about every market, maybe three remaining. Where we do have some closed days, but we're at a 7-day operation. So that I think is an indication of the demand. 400 more days and thousands more operating hours than we expected.
Well, that's had to help. Do you think, John, that we've seen, and I talked about it again at the top of the show in Hot Topics, where some parks adjusted their days of operation and their hours of operation, and they had to do that for a couple of reasons. Some because the demand wasn't there, and the other because the labor wasn't there to be able to facilitate and operate. Do you think we'll see in certain aspects of our business where people do go back to some shorter season? I would add to that, when I first started in the industry, Disneyland was closed on Monday and Knott's Berry Farm was closed on Tuesday, I think, or reverse that. I can't remember now. But do you think it's always going to be 24/7? I mean that in the sense of 7 days a week and 12 hours a day.
You learn a lot, and to your point, those reductions wouldn't have happened without a precipitating event or cause.
Mhm.
And as you reduce hours or reduce days, and then you add them back, you do see where the value is. So it's probably too soon to say because we're only mid-July in what looks like a good summer, but I do expect we're going to have lessons going forward about what days, what hours, what schedule's most important to our visitors. And in the end, that's what really matters. When do people want to come, and are we ready for them? So we will learn from this.
Well, we look at two things. I remember years ago, it was always how many people did you have? Well, really at the end of the day, from a business standpoint, it was how much revenue and what was your margin, what was your profit margin. So that all has to work together. Are you throughout the company here in the United States, and maybe you could just touch on Parquets a little bit? We're seeing programs that have been instituted and accelerated, like contactless, touchless programs in the parks. We saw announced last week where Kings Island here in Cincinnati, one of our great parks in the industry, is going to go cashless. And they're starting that this month, at the end of this month, maybe this week. And I was laughing to my old boss who, when we opened Kings Island, we didn't take credit cards. Now we're not taking cash. It's all credit card. What do you see happening in that arena? Do you think it's good, bad, or is there a purpose?
Yeah, I read the same news for you. And as somebody that's been in the industry a long time, my first memories of working in a park were with a big bag of money on my shoulder, walking through the park.
Yeah.
With crazy amounts of change and a working fund to work on what was a cash register at that time. So things have changed. I think again we'll learn from this. In terms of behavior of that nature that we've noted, the biggest lesson for us, and it's actually a great outcome for our visitors, for the consumer in the industry, is a lot of business that came through many channels, or even business that was walk up, is now directly through our website. And I think that's a great development for our consumers who really just want to know where the best value is, where the best communication is about the products. So seeing more and more people come directly through our own websites, through our own e-commerce channels is something that we of course saw growing before COVID, but we've seen rapid acceleration. I think that's good for us and good for the people that visit.
Yeah, absolutely. Did we talked a little bit about inflation and rising prices. I read some statistics. Uh, Basically, everybody's had to raise prices. I haven't seen a lot of pushback at this point in time. I'm seeing some adjustments now, as I mentioned with Disney, and maybe that could be a lot of different reasons that's happening. But uh, what, where is the company? Where's Palace on increasing prices? And is it a geographic issue? Is it market by market? Is it a product by product? What do you,
Yeah.
what do you
So
see?
our pricing decisions are consumer driven, consumer data driven, and there's a revenue management team that studies, as you said, market by market. You
Mhm.
can't look at the U.S. as an entity. You have to look at each state where we operate
Sure.
and in each market within that state. And so the pricing environment is one of consumer data, consumer demand driving it. Um, have there been adjustments? Yes, but in a lot of cases, we're seeing people to move to just higher value products. And in every market almost that we operate, you can get a pass, at least one level of pass that pays for itself in less than 2 visits. So
Yeah.
people are trading to products like that, which is a good thing for us. And I'll go back to your comment about inflation, Dennis. A lot of the industries you cited where it's rapid, airlines, hotels, travel related, right? Autos, things like that. Again, that's a case where this largely regional US industry of theme parks, including us here at Palace, the vast majority of our visitors come from 1 mile, 1 hour and in, an hour and in within our parks, where their hometown parks, where their favorite parks. So as there's pressure on that side, I think those passes, that local visit becomes actually an incredible value for them in an environment where maybe some other products are escalating at a higher rate.
Yeah. What's your what's your approach? What's the company's philosophy? I mean, we all live on repeat visitation, and repeat visitation is driven, as I've said thousands of times, by capex improvement. But what is your approach to that, and what do you think that has to be offered? And is there anything different you're seeing as a result of the audibles that had to be called?
Sure. So in terms of capex, I think the lessons of the industry that we all know are even heightened at this time. We talked about food and beverage events like Bites and Pints that we've rolled out at Lake Compounce and Kennywood, micro events in the parks, past member recognition days and past member award days,
Mhm.
creating new reasons, new experiences for people to come, whether that's steel in the ground or sort of environment and event related in the parks. We've got to keep creating newness, and we see a
Mhm.
great response when we introduce newness. So that's will always be a core to our plan. As I said, we don't have specific projects that we're going to announce today, but hopefully in the near future we will.
Yeah, that's great. We'll be watching for that too. Is back to the labor situation for a minute, because it's still looming. I've talked to a lot of GMs and CEOs over the last 2 weeks, and their response, I'm encapsulating this, is we're not out of the woods yet. We're concerned about what happens to us when the schools start to go back in here in uh, early August, because as we know, the school seasons are compressed and schools are trying to get ready. Um, John, how many people are you short, if you are short, and how are you going to fill that gap if it gets a little broader moving into the fall season?
I'll the headline, and then I'll kind of take you back to what we've
Yeah.
done. We are the headline for us is we feel good about where we've gotten, and we have, as I said, in almost every market, we're at the operating calendar that we want to have. We feel good about the service levels that we're providing for our guests, and we're seeing that in their ratings. The Back in March, we did notice that the hiring environment was challenging. We saw the same reports you did. Fortunately, we're a very summer concentrated portfolio. June to August, a lot of water parks, a lot of Northeast parks. So June to August. So we had time to adjust. We went market by market, 20 meetings with every single market, and looked at our staffing plan. And we made adjustments to wages. We made adjustments to incentives, and we saw thousands of applicants come in when we made those changes. So was the environment challenging in March? Is it challenging now? Yes. But did we see a tremendous response with the measures we took? Free passes at Kennywood, even a job fair where people and their guests got free potato patch fries was a big hit, and not only in the park, but in terms of online applications. So our team got really creative, was really flexible in their approach. We feel good about the position we're in now. Are we still hiring? Yes, but as I said, we're a summer concentrated business, so we feel good about where we've gotten to this point.
Few more questions popping in on both sides here, John. So I'm going to give you a few. This is from Casey. He says, are there challenges and hurdles, John, that Palaces faces with having the Parquet's global portfolio of properties more so than just a local portfolio? So I think clarifying that by being all over the world, is it more difficult, or how do you separate, and how does the company manage that?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Casey. I would go back to what we said earlier, in that being part of a large portfolio brings you more expertise. It brings you more experience. It brings you more resources. So I see it entirely as an advantage, and we're happy to be part of that.
How about leverage, John? I've always heard, and I've been in small and large situations. Do you really think there's a purchasing, buying leverage, marketing leverage that you get from being in a bigger organization?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. The company has initiatives underway in that area. We see progress along that front. So again, that's where being part of a large portfolio brings resources to the table.
Would that be separated between Europe and the U.S., or would it work in each geographic region more so?
When it comes to best practices or value creation for the company, there's a great deal of communication, a great deal of synergy. So we would work together.
This comes in from our friend Sarah over at Premier Rides. She said, John, I understand a lot of investment has gone to upgrades at parks, such as improving changing rooms and restrooms. Things are harder to market. Can you share a timeline for planning new attractions at the park? You touched on this a little bit, but we're going to pressure you.
Sure. Thanks, Sarah. And I would be disappointed if you didn't ask that question. knowing from where you speak. So
yeah, that's right. Sarah's always good for a good question.
I like that. So yeah, first, yes, we've had a tremendous reinvestment in restrooms and benches and other things. As we said, the company was under a reinvention program prior to the events of 2020, and I think now guests are coming back and seeing some of that. And I'll just one more point, and I'll move on to the steel. If you look behind me at Lake Compounce, we had a massive renovation refurbishment effort there this year. And if you haven't been to Lake Compounce, you should get up there. But if you haven't been there recently, I'd say you haven't been there. Just all sorts of new elements, new finish for our visitors. They're noticing, and it's such a great time for people to come and see the elevated appeal of the park, the elevated experience, because it's its 175th birthday. So yes, we're doing a lot of those things, improving the guest experience in our parks, whether that be restroom or aesthetics or comfort or other areas. The second part of your question is CapEx, and I'll go back to my first answer. I don't have any specific projects that we would announce today, but certainly a lot of the folks on this call will be the first to know, and hopefully we'll have that information coming in the next months.
John, what are you seeing? A lot of parks and a lot of our guests have talked about the in-park spending being up considerably from certainly 2019. What do you think's driving that? Is it technology, pent-up demand? Is it offering? What do you think it is?
Yeah, I would say, and again, this is just my own intuition in the parks, but certainly there's some pent-up demand. Certainly, our culture is increasingly a foodie culture. Dining is an entertainment experience.
Yeah, it's number two thing in a park visit, that's for sure.
Right. And what better backdrop to do it than in a theme park? So I think we're seeing that trend definitely play out, and it's an exciting one, and I think it's one that we'll lean into in the coming years.
What about merchandise? Do you see merchandise remaining where it's been? Do you see this year people coming back saying, oh, I got to have that hat or t-shirt, salt and pepper shaker? I mean, I know it's different in a regional operation than a destination operation. Everybody's got to have the mouse ears because they may not be back. But what do you see in your regional attractions?
In a lot of cases, we have people coming into the parks, and in our retail stores are some of the first bricks and mortar stores that they've been to in a long, long time. So you see people dwelling, you see that shopping behavior, and I think that's exciting. That's exciting to see. So we see people interested in coming in the stores, interested in the products. I'm going to guess they've been buying online at home. A lot of people have avoided sort of the physical bricks and mortar, and they're pretty excited when they see one now.
Here's this comes in, didn't give us a name. It says, John, what park did you grow up going to, and do you have a favorite memory from there?
I grew up in Eastern Virginia, as I said, just south on 95 and east on 64 from where Dennis worked, and so the hometown park.
And King's Dominion was your favorite until you went to work.
I went there plenty of times, and I do like that park. But my hometown park was Busch Gardens in Virginia. Grew up going there. My first memory is probably a photograph where I've got probably 10 years old and have a bird on my shoulder for a photo op. So
the parrot, you had the parrot.
Yeah, great park, great industry.
This is from Elise. She said, "Where do you see the hotspots in the industry, both domestically and internationally?"
Well, I think I'm most equipped to talk about the U.S. and we're excited about our growth prospects. Here, we feel we're in good markets. As we talked earlier, there are high barriers to entry. We're working hard to create new and exciting reasons for people to visit, to create products to enable those visits. We feel really good about the opportunity in the portfolio we have, whether it's the historic amusement, whether it's the children's parks or the water park portfolio.
John, in that 7,000 figure you referenced earlier, is that just Palace Entertainment? That doesn't include Parques Reunidos.
No, it would be much greater for the global company. I don't have that number.
And this may put you a little bit on the spot, but I mean, we have seen obviously during the last year, we haven't been able to travel. We haven't been able to get out and meet one another like we've done our entire lives in the industry. We've seen a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of webinars, a lot of podcasts. What do you think the future is of the industry as it relates to trade shows? And we all want to be together, but as more of these expand, we've heard manufacturers and we've heard operators say it's very expensive to travel around. What's kind of your take from a United States operation of attending different trade shows and exhibits?
Sure. Well, in the near term, I think everyone has got to look at what makes sense for their own business in the short run, and we've done that. You can accomplish a lot virtually. We've learned that as a business. We've learned that in Palace as an organization, but it doesn't substitute the face to face. And it's clear that you need some of that. And I look at just how excited a lot of people were to get the parks open, to get back to face where we could.
Sure.
So I think you can't substitute that. When I think about the big trade shows, you need your industry organizations to do what you can't do for yourself. And we're big fans of what IAPA, other trade organizations do.
Sure.
And those face-to-face gatherings are important to them. Their strength is important to us. So, however this evolves, I hope that it's in a way that the organizations that advocate for the industry remain really strong, because we all need that.
I think when we get back to whatever normal is, and hopefully, as I've said, it'll be better than normal. We'll be better than we were. It'll be a great reunion, and I think Orlando this year is going to be a lot of fun, and certainly glad to see that we're doing IAPA again this year. It'll be interesting to see what the international travel is. I mean, if you saw last podcast, Kelvin Tan from Dynamic, he was talking about it took him literally 5 months to plan his trip to China, and that's one of their biggest markets. And once he got there, he had to quarantine for 2 weeks, and he has to quarantine. And so we're going to see what this all won't come back at once, but I do believe it will come back.
Right. The marketplace is ultimately increasingly global, and that pull will bring people back. As you said, Dennis, it's a question of timing.
Yeah, it's a timing issue. We all want it to happen quickly, but it'll happen, as you said. It's a practicality issue and a financial issue, and it'll be based on a lot of things. Here's a question from Carl. He said, when Palace is considering a new attraction in a new market, whether from scratch or acquisition, do you look at what's your decision-making process, and what are some of the critical factors, 3 top critical factors you look at when you're buying or adding something?
Sure. I think absolutely you have to start with the consumer, and these are customer-based decisions. So what appeals to the customer that you want to attract to your park?
Yeah.
What gives you the greatest lift, the greatest retention, the greatest value creation that you can get? So, I mean, the first point of 1, 2, or 3 is always going to be your customer, and what your data, what your research tells you. Secondly, you have to look at the portfolio, what you have, what rounds out the experience, what's going to build the guest experience internally, and of course the financial considerations. What's the right size, investment return, and all that sort of thing. But the most important part of the answer, Carl, is you got to start with the customer.
Yeah. Demography too. You're looking at them. That's right. Here's one from a friend of ours, Tim Viox. Tim says, "Hey, John, a little question about your history." He said, "Who from your prior organizations do you think you most model your leadership style after?" Did you work for Tim once, incidentally?
I worked with Tim, and
yeah, I know you did.
I think actually Tim's coming to see me in Pittsburgh next week. So after the Papa show, so I'm excited.
You're even going to have him after this question, right? Yeah. Who did you model your style after? You?
Yeah, I'd say I'll give you 3 people, 3 different reasons.
Yeah.
Keith Kaysen was the CEO of Bush Entertainment for
Knew him
years.
well, knew Keith.
One of the great, you knew him because he was down the road for you again, down 64
Yeah,
from where you were.
that's right.
Just one of the greatest people you ever met. I was a food service area manager, and he would take duty manager on Sundays, and he would come take me to dinner in the park and mentor me, take me around the park, tell me what he was doing. He didn't have to take that interest in me. I was 23 years old. I was a food service manager, but just his mentoring, I think, really stuck with me. I'd say Dan Brown. If any of you know Dan Brown, was the COO for Busch Gardens and SeaWorld for many years.
Sure, I remember Dan.
Dan was wise. He was a great boss. He never created a crisis for you. He didn't come in the morning and try to spin you up in a different direction than you were going the day before, unless he needed to. So, just a great crowd to work for. And then another one, Jim Atchison, who was the CEO, just one of the most dynamic, engaging, kindest people you'll ever know. Great leader, great guy in a crisis. So I'd say that the three of those, I've tried to take something from each of them. I don't think I do any of those things as well as they did, but just incredible leaders, and I'm grateful to have worked with them.
Yeah, three great guys. I knew them all, and they did have their different strengths and skills for sure. And
Sure.
you blend that together, and you look what you get. You get a pretty good leader. That's good. A couple of more things coming in here, John. It says, where are we, Pam? Up there. It says, let me pull off here. Pull my glass a minute. It says, where are we? Okay. It says, what is Palace doing in terms of events? You talked a little bit about that. Are these a big part of the facility operations? Are they going to remain, or are they just independent events that you put into as stopgaps? What do you think will be the future of these independent kind of events that you've alluded to?
Yeah, we're thrilled with Bites and Pints is the biggest launch that we've done. That was
That's going to stay with you.
That is going to stay with us. If I give you an indication, the people here in Pittsburgh loved it, and we actually extended it. It was planned to be Friday, Saturday, Sundays in June. The event was so good, we extended it through July 4th weekend. And so, I mean, that's an indication. In year one, you don't often see an event extended. Often these events take a couple of years to take root, but we're really encouraged, and we think creating those seasonal reasons for people to visit, those reasons in each of our markets, whether it's Connecticut or Pennsylvania, to buy a pass is a great strategy. It's a proven strategy in the business, and we're excited about the first steps that we've taken.
What's your outlook for the fall, John? I talked a little bit earlier about the importance of Halloween and Christmas events. I'm not sure if you do Christmas events. I know you do Halloween. I know Kennywood has a big program.
We do. Christmas in Kennywood and Dutch Wonderland and Lake Compounce. We're evaluating that right now. It wasn't part of the plan going into 2021, but given consumer demand, that's something that we're examining and studying right now with analysis. And the same for Halloween. We do have Halloween programs in Idlewild and Kennywood. And
how important is Halloween to you guys?
Pardon?
How important is Halloween to you all?
It's important to us, but I would also say it's an opportunity for it to become even bigger, and that's part of what we'll study going forward here.
Yeah, I mean, it is our industry's single largest event, cross promotional event. Everybody does it, and it's just gotten more huge every year. So that's great.
Well, you look in seasonal parks. I'm sure you remember this, but you take what was a sleepy month of October many years ago, and now for many businesses, it's their peak days of the entire year. So that's the power of events.
Have you seen any impact, John, on two things across your properties? We've seen some horrible weather over the last weeks. And here in Cincinnati, we've got 2 days of sun, today and tomorrow, and then it's going to rain through next Tuesday, the weatherman's telling us. not only telling us, he's telling our guests that. So they kind of plan that in their schedule. And that's one weather. And second question I'd ask you is, have you seen any impact of the rising oil prices? I mean, gas is high right now. We've seen that. It's on the news all the time. Is that affecting you at all?
Sure. So the first part in terms of weather, we're fortunate to have 6 parks in California, Wet and Wild in Greensboro, North Carolina, Noah's Ark. So we have some geographic diversity, but we're also concentrated somewhat in the Northeast. So we do notice when there are clouds in the sky, as do our visitors. The thing about weather to me is within reason. If the demand is strong, you have payback days. You have surges after the weather breaks. When the weather breaks and you don't get any payback or any makeup for that attendance, for me that's more a symptom of underlying demand. So we try to focus on what we control, not worry about it more than we have to. And certainly we'd like for the sun to have been out more days than it has in the last 2 weeks, but we'll pardon the pun, we'll weather it. So the second
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I will. I'm not sure I will pardon that, but go ahead.
You had a second part of the question. Sorry.
That's the events and the gasoline. Has that affected any of your, because
So
it's high,
again,
it's the highest it's been in 7-8 years.
Similar to the discussion on inflation, this regional business is resilient, and a lot of us have seen it in economic downturns where parks where the concentration of visitors comes from from 1 hour and in. Even during economic downturns, they can be quite resilient, and that's what makes this an exciting business to be in, an enduring business. So I can't say we've seen any impact from that in terms
That's
of
great. Yeah, that's great. I mean, we saw in 2007 when gas hit $4 a gallon first time, it was like people got hit in the head with the ball bat. I mean, parks were losing 100,000 in over 2 weeks. I remember the reports on that. So I think, again, pin up demand, all the things we've gone through, they don't care. They're saying, let's get out and have some fun. So I guess if we're going to have high gas prices, it came at a good time, frankly.
Yeah, in general, for us, it's we're in great markets, in a lot of cases, large population areas. It doesn't, it's not a lot of miles for people to drive to get to one of our parks.
Yeah, that's great. Well, the term staycation, which we coined back during that period of the recession in high gas, it's back again. People are staying a little closer, and we're seeing that. That's great. John, guess what? We're out of time. It's a fast hour, isn't it?
Thanks so much for having me, Dennis. Really a privilege to be here with you.
Well, it's really wanted John for some time, and I'm glad you could make way in your schedule. It's a fast hour. We have more questions on both sides of us. Pam and Sean will send you some questions, and when you have a little bit of time, if you could just give us a couple of brief answers so the listeners and viewers know that we saw them and you saw them, that'll be good, and we'll put them in our news, our ITPS Daily News. So thank you, John. Stay with me a minute here. One thing we've been getting a lot of here at the I'm4FUN podcast is we've been getting a lot of questions and suggestions from people in the industry on what topics to cover and who to bring on. And one of the recent ones that we've been hearing a lot of people ask for is come back and talk about the water park industry, which certainly is a part of what you do, John. And so I'm real happy to announce that we're going to bring on Chris Perry. Chris is currently the Vice President of Resorts and Services at Baha Mar in the Bahamas, a big, wonderful, beautiful resort. You have to see this place. He was previously with Royal Caribbean in the international markets. He's worked with Whitewater, and he's been in the Middle East and Southeast Asia. He's really one of the best known people in the water park. And we've got from Jeff Ellis and Associates, we've got Richard Carroll. Rack is coming on, a longtime friend. He's the Senior Vice President and COO of Ellis and Associates. and he's got over 35 years of experience in the water park industry. And Scott Dicely, the manager and director of Ellis and Associates over in the European market. So we're going to bring them on. We're going to have some great discourse on water parks. If you have some questions out there, the viewers and listeners, please send them to Pam Westerman at pamwesterman@interthemepark.com. And that's all we get those in advance, and we get them as we're doing the podcast. So, and we've got some more guests lined up. I always like to say, John, that we work in a great industry. If we don't have fun, how can we sell it? And we've always had fun. And I love to see that smile on your face. And the other thing is we found out we're not here for a long time. We're here for a good time. And we make the best of it. And we really do work in a great industry. We don't put smoke in the skies and pollute. We don't pollute the rivers and the streams. What we really do is put smiles on people's faces at the end of the day. And we make memories that last a lifetime. So, John, thank you very much, John Reilly, for joining us. I'll talk to you soon. And thanks to everybody out there. Great representation today, John. And thanks for your candor and your honesty. It's really appreciated.
Thanks for having me.
See ya.